So at the Pentagon, where I'm sitting right now, what we're seeing is preparations to provide the president options. So we've seen fighter jets moving into the Middle East, air refueling tankers that would be needed to carry out operations also in the region. And we've seen at least one aircraft carrier sort of dashing towards the Middle East, and some other warships.
Let's speak to Idrees Ali, the Reuters national security correspondent who's at the Pentagon this evening. Idrees, a warm welcome to the show again. Thank you for being across this story for us. You're in the building, of course, where many will be mapping out the next move as we speak. Is there any hint? Are there any rumours about what Donald Trump may do next? He's keeping us all guessing. But what do you think might happen?
I think what we saw yesterday was this key critical meeting of national security leaders with President Trump to talk about Iran, to talk about the options, about what might not be feasible. And I think we were all sort of expecting some sort of decision to come out of that one way or the other. And what's becoming clear now is that, not only does it appear that he might not have made a decision, it sort of appears like he actually hasn't made up his mind. So at the Pentagon, where I'm sitting right now, what we're seeing is preparations to provide the president options. So we've seen fighter jets moving into the Middle East, air refueling tankers that would be needed to carry out operations also in the region. And we've seen at least one aircraft carrier sort of dashing towards the Middle East, and some other warships. So they're definitely getting prepared, but I don't think we've seen hey, this is happening for sure. And so, the audio clip you played, I think, perfectly sort of describes the mood, which is, he might do it, he might not.
Do you think it's one of those situations, and we've seen this before, where the US gets involved and we're told about it after? By the way, the US helped enable this particular strike, for example, if there is more on the way, as we presume there are, from Israel in the direction of Iran.
Yeah, that's a good question, right? What the U.S. has or has not done, they so far say we haven't played any role, and then Trump yesterday, I know we talked about it, sort of said we have, control of the skies, implying that the U.S. was playing a role in some way or shape or form. Our sources say that hasn't happened, but there are sort of a wide range of options the U.S. could be doing or could do, and that includes something as simple as providing intelligence, right, which is helping the operation but not taking strikes, or doing something more involved, which is, helping refuel Israeli jets as they're on their way to the bombing. The most extreme version of this is actually carrying out strikes secretly. I think that does become a bit tougher to keep under wraps, given that, I think the expectation is if the U.S. bombed, it would be against a nuclear facility. It would be a huge, I think, 37,000-pound bomb. It would make a lot of noise in a way that other bombs don't, actually. And so to carry out strikes in the way we think they're thinking about, I think it'd be really tough to keep under wraps.
Yeah, so this is the site at Fordow, right? The huge facility that is underground, effectively, and it is only US weaponry, US military capability that could target that. So if that goes, we know that the US is involved. We can pretty much make that assumption, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think President Trump is, someone who I think if he does something and he wants it to be done, I think he is someone who's going to proudly, probably on Truth Social, cheer it on. I think I will make the point that and experts have made to me and others, which is, the U.S. can use their sort of bunker buster, right? A couple of bunker busters at the exact site where the sort of entrance is to this nuclear facility. But how do you make sure that it's actually worked? And that really can only be done by leveling it to such an extent that there's no doubt, or you need someone to go in there to actually see and make sure that it's been destroyed in the way you think it's been done. So I think there is a certain level of risk with just bombing and then saying it's done. And then, 6 months later, the Iranians say, actually, the bomb was not as effective as it was. So I think there are a couple of variables I think the military is still thinking through. And one of these being, if the U.S. bombs them, how do you make sure that they have done what they think they were supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, we know that Israeli intelligence are operating inside Iran, quite where they are and what they're up to. We wouldn't know, for instance, but maybe there are ways of being able to double check that. Pete Hegseth, the Defence Secretary, was questioned today in Congress. He was asked by the Senator, Jean Shaheen, about a strike on Iran. This is what he said.
Any decisions on this matter are at the presidential level. He has communicated very clearly for quite some time.
I do understand that, Mr. Secretary, but my question for you is whether you have been asked actively to provide options for the president regarding a strike in the Middle East?
If I had or I had not, I wouldn't disclose that in this forum, Senator. My job, our job, Chairman and I, at all times, is to make sure the president has options and is informed of what those options might be and what the ramifications of those options might be.
I appreciate
Pete Hegseth there. Let's just talk about evacuations, US citizens in the region. The administration's been talking about sending special charter planes to try and evacuate them. That is certainly more than our Foreign Office is doing. What can we read into that?
Yeah, so this really kicked off, I think, publicly last week when we started hearing that the U.S. was going to sort of take diplomats out of their embassy in Baghdad and allow family members of service members who were all across the Middle East to leave. So that was a sign something's happening, right? Since then, what we've also heard is that the U.S. is open to helping Americans leave if they want to from Israel. Now, the only thing is there are about 700,000 Americans who are in Israel. That's a huge number, and it would dwarf, sort of what the requirements were for the U.S. Withdrawal from Afghanistan. So I think the administration is thinking through what can you realistically do? How do you do it in a way that doesn't signal that some sort of military strike is imminent? And this administration was very critical of the way the Biden folks left Afghanistan. So how do you do an evacuation, if that's how you choose to do it, through military means or charter flights, where it doesn't cause chaos and doesn't show weakness, which, Trump is very, very opposed to. So I think they're grappling with those things, but it's something that, started early on and it's continuing, but we haven't seen a mass exodus as one might expect when, war has started and is actually, killing quite a few people on both sides.
Yeah, look, thanks for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. That is Idrees Ali, who is Reuters national security correspondent currently in the Pentagon. Good to speak to you again. Thank you.
عشان نصور